And that's what I want to share with you today, because I know the frustration of putting in the effort and not seeing results. I know the mental game of blaming yourself for any little slip up. And I also know the freedom and the satisfaction with food and your body that is 100% possible. So listen closely, my friend. Let's get you unstuck.
Do you struggle to stay consistent with healthy eating and just want food decisions to be easy, guilt-free, and sustainable? You're in the right place. Hi, I'm Chelsea, nutritionist and fitness coach who overcame restrictive yo-yo dieting and body image insecurities using simple nutrition tools, all backed by biblical principles. And now I help women like you find that same freedom with food so you can feel confident in the look and health of your body for decades to come. I'm ready to dive in with you. So grab that cute notebook you've been hanging on to and let's go.
I just hosted my live virtual workshop, The Food Freedom Formula, and honestly, I am still on cloud 9 about how it went. Full transparency, I was pretty nervous going in because I have been working on this project for months, and I just wanted to serve people and give you some of my best tools to help make eating healthy consistently something that's actually doable. And the response I've received from those who attended has exceeded all of my expectations. So much so that although I had not planned on doing this, I'm going to make the replay of the workshop available for a few more days. You can get in on the goodness by heading to coachrain.com/replay before Thursday, October 30th. I've got the video linked along with the downloadable resources, totally free. Again, that's coachrain.com/replay to watch the Food Freedom Formula workshop before October 30th. And now, welcome to the show. You know what's frustrating? When you work so incredibly hard to eat clean, like saying no to desserts, to chips and dip, to alcohol, limiting yourself to eating all of the plain chicken breast, and maybe even drinking your coffee black, like that level of clean. And after weeks, you maybe lose 3 pounds and still feel fluffy. I mean, really? After all that work, barely anything to show for it, it kind of makes you question whether or not it's even worth the effort. Because if you basically look the same, you might as well eat the yummy stuff, right? Sound familiar? So that was Chelsea, circa 2014 to probably 2016. And even when I started incorporating workouts into my routine, the changes to my body were minimal. I just never seemed to be able to get that muscle definition I so desperately longed for. That is, of course, until I found the game changer. And that's what I want to share with you today, because I know the frustration of putting in the effort and not seeing results. I know the mental game of blaming yourself for any little slip up. And I also know the freedom and the satisfaction with food and your body that is 100% possible. So listen closely, my friend. Let's get you unstuck. Now, the game changer is a two-pronged concept with, you guessed it, food. It is the combination of both ingredient quality and the proportion of food groups in relation to one another. Let's break it down. Right at the end of my college days, I started following the paleo diet. I had gained more weight during college than I was comfortable with. I was starting to learn more about gut health and systemic inflammation, and truthfully, I wanted to see muscle definition, something I hadn't really ever accomplished before. That was also when I was first introduced to CrossFit, although it wasn't until several years later that I would actually join my first CrossFit gym. But I remember saving pictures of CrossFit Games athletes to my Pinterest board as inspiration Because dang, have you seen those ladies? The sheer amount of muscles those women have is just so impressive. I mean, very clearly defined six packs, and that is what I wanted. And so at that time, CrossFit and paleo were very closely linked. A lot of CrossFitters ate the paleo way. So naturally, I thought that eating paleo would help me get abs. And I was pretty strict with paleo for a couple of years, and I did see some positive changes. I lost some weight for sure, but the biggest difference was my skin. Oh my gosh, I went from using harsh acne soaps and ointments. I was on prescription meds for pretty painful cystic acne to a completely clear face. And if you've ever struggled with acne, you know how terrible wanting to hide your face can feel. So that was a huge plus, and it can be expected when you focus on gut health and eliminate all dairy, grains, refined sugar. In fact, the only sugar I allowed myself to have was honey on rare occasion. Overall, I was pretty happy with the results, and if I'm being honest, I probably could have just stopped there and been decently content with my body. But I still wanted to have noticeable muscle definition. At this point, I was starting to dabble into CrossFit a little more. I would do CrossFit workouts at my own Globo gym. I got a lot of weird looks for doing handstand push-ups next to the dumbbell racks. I wanted to continue to be a better athlete. I wanted to do multiple pull-ups and push-ups and the cool lifts with the barbell and just more athletic all around. That was when I was introduced to the Zone diet, which was also adopted into CrossFit's methodology. In case you are unfamiliar with the Zone diet, it is basically a more complicated version of macro tracking. Essentially, you have a set number of blocks you can eat in a day based on your body type, your activity level, all that stuff. And a block is determined by the number of grams of protein or carbs or fat in a food, with the idea that you have an equal number of blocks per food group in each meal. Oh my gosh, I can't even explain it without it sounding complicated. But I felt a difference immediately. In fact, within a week or two of following the Zone diet, my CrossFit coach, who I saw daily, commented asking what I am doing, if I've changed something about life, because I was noticeably faster and had more endurance. And I'm a words of affirmation gal, so that meant everything to me. I was extremely diligent in staying the course with the Zone diet, and I'll tell you what, within 4 months, I was the leanest I had ever been. I felt energized. I was breaking personal records right and left in the gym, and I finally started seeing the muscle definition I had dreamt of for basically my whole life, but it came at a cost. Like I said before, it's a complicated diet method. Planning out my meals would take a significant amount of time, figuring out exactly how much of each ingredient I needed to get my total daily blocks, and then measuring and weighing everything individually. I literally counted out 3 cashews every day for my 1 block of fat to have in my work snack. No more, no less. 3 cashews. And I started to become obsessive about food. I skipped social outings with friends and coworkers to, 1, avoid missing my perfectly planned out and calculated meals, and 2, to avoid being tempted by food that was not accounted for, that I didn't make myself. I would actually have meltdowns if something messed up my food plans. In fact, I remember one time I was dog sitting for a friend. I had made my dinner and brought it upstairs to my bedroom, realized I forgot a fork, so I went back down the stairs to the kitchen, got my fork, and by the time I made it back up to my room, the dog had eaten 3/4 of my dinner, and I cried. I literally cried because I had spent 45 minutes measuring and cooking everything to perfection, and now I had to start over. And I did. I actually went back down to the kitchen and made it all over again. This, my friend, is not a healthy relationship with food. It's actually considered disordered eating patterns, not to be confused with an eating disorder. But food had become all-encompassing for me, and there was no margin to step outside of the rules. After a couple years of that, followed by more diet tactics and really starting to realize this unhealthy relationship I had with food and my body, I was getting more involved in my church community, and I decided I needed to start investigating what the Lord had to say about food and taking care of our bodies. I started to see the idol I had made food in my life, as well as body image, and I wanted to heal both so that I could truly be as healthy as possible, so I could potentially raise a family someday and set the example for my kids, so I could have freedom with food and not constantly feel either deprived of my favorite things or guilty for cheating. In addition to all of my own ambitions, I was actively coaching and personal training full time, helping other people become the healthiest versions of themselves. I had the luxury of being single, no kids, working my own hours, which meant endless flexibility in being able to weigh and measure all of my food, and usually eat the same 3 meals for months at a time without anyone complaining. That was not true for any of my clients. I needed to give them a nutrition plan that was both effective and easy to implement. So that brings me to the game changer, and I call it the diamond meal. If you've been listening for a while, you've probably already heard me talk about this. Basically, it is my framework that I really should get trademarked for combining the 2 biggest factors that I have found to turn the fluff into tone. And like I mentioned at the beginning, that is ingredient quality and the proportions of food groups to one another. I had learned the importance of food quality by following the paleo diet. And while I don't promote a strict paleo regimen anymore, generally speaking, the principles are great to follow. Keeping ultra-processed food-like products out of the equation will always benefit our health. And then I learned proportions from the Zone diet. Now, I am careful not to use portions, but rather proportions. You don't need to cut carbs or go low fat, no fat, or just eat less. I actually think those do more damage than good in most cases. We need variety to keep our gut happy, and a happy gut is a happy rest of the body. This is also why I don't love macro tracking, because oftentimes, and I've experienced this firsthand, what we end up doing is eating the same few things day after day because it's already calculated out and it's just easier to stick to that routine. But if we are only eating nutrients A through G at best, we're missing out on H through Z, which can actually lead to malnourishment. So it can be a really, really good A through G, but we can still be malnourished. Crazy, huh? So I use proportions because each of us has an ideal ratio of proteins to carbs to fats. The diamond meal is simply a visual framework that allows you to craft your meal to fit the proportions your body responds best to. No need to weigh or measure or count out 3 individual cashews. Just make your plate into a pie chart, essentially, and then enjoy the blessing that is that meal. I personally have been eating diamond meals pretty religiously for over 6 years now, and while I may not be that same leanness I was at my most lean, I'm pretty darn close. And a whole heck of a lot happier and peaceful about both food and my body. I don't have midday crashes. I don't have crazy cravings. I still make progress with workouts. And I easily get a wide variety of foods, which keeps me from burnout. I also continue to teach this framework to my nutrition clients because it works. In fact, I had a client reach out just last week, sending me pictures of her diamond meal lunch and dinner that she was particularly proud of, and she graduated from my program over 4 years ago. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have tried a lot of diets and none of them worked well enough or were sustainable enough to keep me excited about it for over 4 years. So if you want to make diamond meals part of your lifestyle and figure out the proportions that work best for you without the hassle of counting and weighing everything, I encourage you to consider joining The Sustainable Way, my one-on-one nutrition coaching program. I will give you all the tools you need to find freedom with food, and I will spare you the extra work that I suffered through. All you need to do is head to coachrain.com/nutrition coaching, where you can learn more and get started quite literally today.
I pray this episode was helpful to you, my friend. If so, could you do me a massive favor and take 30 seconds to write a review? This is the best way to bless me big and help more people learn just how simple eating healthy consistently can be. And if you want more value-packed info from me, head to coachrain.com and sign up for the Weekly Harvest, my weekly emails filled with recipes, how to use food as medicine, biblical nutrition, and more. That's coachreign.com for the Weekly Harvest. Blessings until next time, sis. Toodles.